The Syrian government says it's ready for a limited ceasefire with the rebels and a prisoner swap. The foreign minister has even proposed cooperating with the more moderate opposition groups against radical Islamists. And he raised those issues at a meeting in Moscow with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. Well, let's now discuss the latest developments with the Syrian presidential advisor, Hosseina Shaban. Thank you so much, Ms. Shaban, for joining us here in RT to talk about the situation. Well, it looks like the ball now is in the opposition court. So how do you expect them to react to the proposals, the offers from Damascus?
Well, what we expected right from the beginning and what we expect now and forever is to put the interest of the Syrian people and the interest of Syria above everything else, and to care about Syria rather than to play into the agendas of other parties who actually from the beginning of the crisis they have been really intent on destroying Syria's institutions and on doing so much kidnapping and killing. So we don't want to look back. What we want to do is to try and save our people from so many massacres, from so much bloodshed, and to try and see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, and that would depend, of course, on how the parties, different parties involved in solving the Syrian conflict cooperate with each other. And of course, the Syrian National Council is one of such parties. At this point, they seem to be divided and don't even seem to be decided, in fact, whether to attend the conference, the Geneva II conference, or not. Why do you think there is so much division within them?
I think the divisions come from because of that these parties, first of all, they have been living outside Syria for so many years. They are kind of Syrian, abroad, who do not know what the Syrian people are going through. And second, I think because of the source of finance. I think many of them are receiving finances from different parties. But anyone who lives with the Syrian people, who wants the interest of the Syrian people to be above everything else, would give the utmost priority to stopping this terrorism that is destroying the lives of the Syrian people, causing the death of women and children, and causing the destruction of Syrian infrastructure in Syria. So I believe it's a question of what is one's priorities. Is it the Syrian people and Syria and its territorial integrity, or is it some personal interest and being an ally for other forces who obviously right from the beginning of the crisis want to destroy Syria?
Well, the Syrian government is offering a ceasefire in Aleppo now. Why now? Couldn't it have been done earlier?
If I may correct, it's not a ceasefire, because a ceasefire is used between two armies or two peoples. It's a kind of security arrangements, because Russia and the US have announced in Paris that what they would like to do is to have a kind of pilot project, if you want.
Yeah, but why now?
Well, because we are approaching Geneva, we are trying to reach a political solution for the crisis. We have been trying for all these years, to stop the bloodshed and the killing and to initiate a political process, if you want.
But why wasn't this approach tried earlier then? That could have prevented a lot of people from being killed.
Well, if you remember, Geneva I was agreed upon on the 30th of June 2012. But it is, as ever, the opposition and the countries and the forces who are supporting the opposition who cannot reach an agreement. I mean, even now, the opposition says we will decide today or tomorrow or after tomorrow whether we go to Geneva II, while the Syrian government has announced months ago the names of its delegation that is ready to go to Geneva, because we live in Syria, we care for the Syrian people, we want to end the bloodshed in Syria. That is because we are responsible people. But as for the others, I don't know what their priorities are. You have to ask them.
Yeah,
you have to ask them.
The thing is, as we have earlier established, that there are a lot of parties involved, and the solution to the crisis will depend on what they will offer and put the suggestions that they put to the table. Specifically, the U.S. has said that there's no place for Assad in Syria's future. So that's their position. Do you think Washington is likely to soften their stance in the Geneva II talks?
May I draw your attention and the attention of Washington probably that there is some contradiction in what they said and they announced, because they accept Geneva I. Geneva I says that everything reached between the parties has to be reached by consensus. This means that the Syrian parties during the conference have to agree on the steps to be made, and thus the U.S. cannot say that Assad has no future, because this is contradictory to Geneva I, and it is contradictory to what Mr. Kerry and Mr. Lavrov and other ministers have agreed upon on the 30th of June 2012, on the basis of which everybody is going to Geneva II.
All right. Also, Syria has accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists in Syria. But what is the evidence, and what is the evidence that Damascus is basing these accusations on?
Well, this came as a response to what John Kerry and the foreign minister of Egypt said in Kuwait, saying that Syrian government is destroying schools and hospitals. We asked Kerry to provide evidence, because I think the one who utters the accusation has to provide the evidence. Syria has been one of the rare countries in the world who have a free education, free medical health service. We fight so hard to keep our institutions, and we complain to the world about the terrorists destroying hospitals and schools. So it is absolutely ironic and so unbelievable that somebody should say that the Syrian government is the one who is destroying the schools and hospitals. They should come up with an evidence when they utter an accusation, and the accusation was first directed to us. We are asking them for the evidence.
Well, as we see at this point, Syrian opposition is divided, and there are different, in fact, groups that call themselves opposition. Among them, there are some that are moderate, and Russia has said moderate opposition groups within the war zone should also be invited to the peace talks. What about the position of the Syrian government on this? I mean, has the Syrian government been in negotiation with those moderate groups to get them involved?
Well, we have many moderate groups in Syria we have about 20 opposition political parties, but unfortunately the United Nations did not invite any of them. By the way, we are not here referring to the Islamic Front, because this is not moderate at all, although it has been portrayed by Saudi Arabia and by the United States that this is moderate in comparison to Daesh and to Jabhat al-Nusra. They are all in the same boat. They all kill, kidnap, destroy institutions. What we are referring to is a political opposition, both in Syria and outside Syria, who should be invited to Geneva too. But unfortunately, I don't know what are the criteria that the UN has for inviting opposition people to Geneva too. I think you have to direct some question to Lakhdar Brahimi or to the UN to ask them what are their criteria in inviting Syrian opposition to Geneva too.
All right, and finally, before we let you go, Ms. Shabab, I'd like to ask you another question about the chemical weapons and how the process of destroying the chemical stockpiles that Syria has is going. In fact, the Global Chemical Weapons Watchdog says Syria may not be able to meet the June deadline. So why is it that the Syrian, this process is sort of not meeting this deadline, or there is a possibility of not meeting this deadline?
I think they said it may not be able, so they didn't say it's not meeting its deadline. I think all international organizations are acknowledging that Syria is trying its best with the help of Russia, of course, who is also trying its best to meet deadlines and to get rid of chemical weapons as we promised and as we agreed and as we said. But the problem is that there are some leaks that are being given to terrorist groups inside Syria who are targeting the chemical cargo on their way to the sea. And therefore, I think the forces who are leaking this information should stop leaking this information. And Syria has always been a country that has honored its word and its agreement and its signature. And we've just been in a meeting with Mr. Sergei Lavrov, and we told him that we are absolutely ready to coordinate our efforts with Russia day by day in order to fulfill our commitments in getting rid of these chemical weapons, as we promised that we shall and we will. But don't listen to the media. You know, they promote so many false things, as they did on the 21st of August 2013, accusing the Syrian government of using chemical weapons. And now even their reports, you know, scholars, CIA, everybody has acknowledged that was a lie and that was unfounded information to accuse the Syrian government.
Well, sometimes the information has to come from different sources. For now, though, Syrian Presidential Advisor Bazeina Shaban, thank you so much for sharing your views with us here on RT International.
Thank you very much.